So unless you are Patrick Starr and you've been living under a rock, you've probably heard of Chapter 2 OG, and if you haven't heard of Chapter 2 OG, then I don't know what to tell you. Just kidding, of course. At the end of last year, Fortnite brought back Chapter 1 for a month, and of course, OG players flocked to it like a moth to a flame. As you can imagine, this brought in Epic Games tons of money, and continued to break player record after player record. Now, seeing this, Epic knew that they had to capitalize off this profit, so when the season eventually ended, they announced they would be bringing OG back sometime in 2024 with a twist. Now, of course, this left many players excited for the eventual return of OG. Surely a rogue employee won't leak the entire 2024 year plan and spoil the entire future of Chapter 5, and never mind. So yeah, a few months into 2024, we got a massive roadmap leak, which showed future Battle Royale seasons, collabs, festival artists, and pretty much all plans. This leak also spoiled that rather than Chapter 1, this OG season would go over Chapter 2. Now, a lot of people, of course, denied this leak and assumed it was false, until everything slowly started to come true. Now, just the other day, some news about OG Chapter 2 came out, and not to be negative Nancy, but this has me worried. Now, before you get mad at me in the comments, just let me explain. So, some news came out revealing that the season will only cover seasons 1, 2, and 3. Now, this was kind of expected since the roadmap literally shows these seasons and these only, but most people assumed it was because they couldn't fit like 5 or 6 seasons on the roadmap. Now, I'm not hating by any means. Chapter 2 Season 2 is one of the most loved and agreed upon seasons ever, and Season 3 is my favorite season of all time. The problem is, these seasons are really similar, and map-wise, not much exactly changed.
What's the difference between that ghost and me?
No, wait, don't tell me. Don't tell me! Don't tell me! Don't tell me! I can do this! I can do this! Don't tell me! Don't tell me! Don't tell me! Okay, tell me.
Now, of course, Season 1's map was pretty bare bones, but that can be pretty much expected with Season 1's in general. Now, this season lasted 5 whole months, and had practically 2 additions, being the harpoon gun and lightsabers. Now, because of contractual reasons, I doubt they would bring back the lightsabers. There isn't much to remember with Season 4, and honestly, it's just a massive snooze fest. Now, Season 2, on the other hand, is a fan favorite. The map changes were actually really good and were spread all across the map. Now, despite that, the map is still really similar. The map looks almost exactly the same, and you would need a microscope to see the changes, but I won't complain. This season did introduce a lot of new features, those being mythic bosses, vaults, helicopters, etc. Now, coming to Season 3, this arguably had the most changes of the 3, that being the Flood. The loot pool was actually very interesting and one of the better loot pools ever. Now, this is where my problem arises. Why is it only these 3 seasons? Chapter 1 OG went through 6 whole seasons, these being 5 through 10. While the map changes for some seasons such as 8 and 9 were lacking, we still had the loot pool changes for their respective seasons. When it comes to Chapter 2, there are still multiple memorable seasons they just skip out on. I can understand why they would not do Season 4 for contract reasons and the fact that we are already in a Marvel season right now, so Season 4 is off the table. Season 5 being skipped is insane to me. The map changes were actually amazing and I don't see why they don't bring it back. Sure, there were a lot of collabs, but there were not many that affected the gameplay. Just cut out the collabs that did, such as the Mandalorian, and give us the desert biome and loot pool. Now again, I can understand Season 6, as there's probably about 10 people who actually love that season. Not hating, but it's true. Season 7 is arguably a fan favorite with the fun and diverse loot pool. Season 8 is very underrated and actually had a great loot pool. With all these seasons and all these options, all I ask is, why is Chapter 2 getting the short end of the stick? You could easily include the other seasons, and players would arguably enjoy it. Chapter 2 has so much diversity, yet you only do the first 3. Now, when it comes to time frame, I think this is insanely wild. The season is lasting 1 month, so they have to spread the seasons out a bit. Now, if you do the math, November has 30 days, and if you're doing 3 seasons, it would make sense to split the seasons into 10 days equally, right?
Of course! It's so simple! I'm not following you.
It turns out Season 1 will be starting on November 2nd and ending on the morning of the 9th, giving this season 1 week. Season 2 starts on November 9th and lasts through the morning of November 23rd, giving this season 2 whole weeks. And then Season 3 lasts another week. So instead of balancing it out, they appealed to Chapter 2 Season 2. Now, this makes sense, considering Season 2 is the most loved season of all time, but come on, really? They could have easily done all 8 seasons minus Season 4 and split it out just like Chapter 1 OG. In Chapter 1 OG, Week 1 started off with Season 5, Week 2 with Season 6, and then Week 3 and 4 covered 2 seasons per week. Week 3 covering Seasons 7 and 8, and Week 4 covering 9 and 10. For Chapter 2, they could have started off in Season 1 for the first week, and then go in a 2 season per week pattern. Week 2 being Seasons 2 and 3, Week 3 being Seasons 5 and 6, and Week 4 ending on 7 and 8. This would allow them to properly cover Chapter 2, while also making the finale event a rehash of that chapter's end event. Speaking of the event, that also somewhat got leaked. Because the season ends on Season 3, the event is also in Season 3. The thing is, Season 3 had no live event. Due to some leaks, it is speculated to be the device event, but the thing is, how would they do that? The device event is literally the cause for the flood, so it leaves me wondering how they do it again. Maybe Midas tries the device a second time and then it actually works? Also, I feel like this being the ending is a massive missed opportunity. Chapter 2 had so many better events such as Zero Crisis, Skyfire, and The End Part 2, yet they went with the device. Not hating on it, but there are so many better events they could have done. Also, how is the device supposed to end off and lead us into Chapter 6? The end event Part 2 would make so much more sense. Now, all this news leaves me worried. Don't get me wrong, I love Chapter 2, my 2 favorite seasons of all time being 3 and 5, but with all this info, it leaves me worried that this season OG is gonna flop. It would make so much sense to do the whole chapter minus 4 and end off on the Chapter 2 finale to lead into Chapter 6. I just don't think the seasons are different enough, and there are so many choices they just skipped out on. I feel like they are just trying to avoid anything related to the 7, the Imagined Order, and the Last Reality, which those seasons all relied heavily on. Maybe in between Chapter 6 and 7 they do a Chapter 2 OG Part 2 going through Seasons 5 and 8, but at that point it would just complicate the lore. They keep pulling a time travel card and eventually it will just get repetitive. All I can say is I'm worried, and I hope Epic makes some changes before it releases. I think if they are going to do a remake of Chapter 2, they should do it justice by going over the later seasons. Of course, I am still excited and I will be playing it a ton, but I still feel like there are going to be a lot of missed opportunities. What do you guys think? Are you excited for Chapter 2 OG, and what is your opinion on this news? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, have a great rest of your day.